hold on the way that they did? I know there are a couple of lapses throughout the fourth quarter, but what does it say about you guys being able to hold on and beat this Warriors team?
We made some plays when we put ourselves in a position where we needed them. So it's always good to see that. I thought, throughout the course of the game, we did a good job executing the game plan, particularly offensively. They've been playing great defense, and you saw that particularly late when we weren't as able to generate good looks. And that can happen. We just got to make sure that we're not making it as easy on them, turning the ball over in those situations. But really a good effort. I thought we passed it. You have to play with the pass against them. They're so aggressive with their shifts. And again, some breakdowns on both ends late that, put us in a position where, there was game pressure on us. And when we had the game pressure, I thought we responded well.
How much of some of those breakdowns was maybe at this point of the season, the pace that you guys are trying to play with kind of catching up to you?
It's getting back cut when you're standing in the corner, losing sight of your man, not being strong with the ball, and not being precise in those situations, not moving it when somebody's open and trusting it's going to, it's what we did during the course of the game. So if anything, we need to make sure that we continue to run. And that's, for us, when, especially late, when they're at the foul line or they're scoring, that gets harder, where we have to execute in the half court. But as I said, I thought we had some possessions where we did that and got some good looks, and were able to, to respond, to answer when they were scoring. But you can't give up. We can't give up easy baskets late, especially at the end of a possession when we've guarded well, where guys are just cutting behind us and laying the ball in. And obviously, when we do turn the ball over, it's really hard to defend against those situations.
Hey, Coach, your team, the Hawks, the third most improved offense since the All-Star break, going from a bottom 10 offense to a top 10 offense. What do you think has been the biggest impact from that? Like, is that obviously there's been some personnel changes, but what have you liked from the process? What have you liked from the results?
Well, I think it's a few things. How you play. There's an evolution to that. I think we've been able to space the floor in a way that's been able to allowed us to attack the rim. I think we're getting in the paint, and there was a point earlier in the year we were trying to finish when we had kind of a good to great, where we may make some of those shots, those long twos at the rim. I'm talking about layups, where we've gotten better at getting our eyes out and passing the ball out. So I can give you a really long answer to that question. Everything from spacing to passing to the things I just mentioned. When we take care of the ball and we run, that's the way we need to play. And if we do that, I don't know where we're top 40, but that's what I want to see. I'm not looking at the offensive and defensive efficiency numbers right now. But it's good to know we've gotten better. And I think some of the credit there goes to George and Karis and Terrence and some of the things they're doing. They've been really committed to the way that we want to play, which is hard mid-season. And I think Onyeka's given us a different look when he's coming out and making some shots. Again, I mentioned before that there's different ways that we can space, and that's been something that we've just had to have more and more recognition, because it's never that clear, or it usually isn't.
I was actually going to ask about Onyeka and playing through him a little bit more, and obviously he was really productive again tonight. It's been a theme lately. What are you seeing from him as a facilitator in addition to his finishing and everything else?
Yeah, I think he's I mentioned this before, he's got really good instincts, and guys trust him, and you trust him even more. And he's been really effective rolling, and in those situations where he's on the perimeter, whether he's spaced in the corner or he's got the ball on the top of the floor and he's passing or spacing. Those are things that he's learning to do more and more, and I think getting more and more comfortable. And it's something he's worked on, and right now we're seeing it translate.
Coach, it wasn't 22 made threes like last game, but it felt like the shooting was in the parts where you liked it. George, with those 6 that he hit tonight, I mean,
Yeah.
what is it about that you like about your offense and how it's running right now and be able to shoot the 3 well?
Well, it's always good when you make shots. You know, George played better 6 for 9 than 2 for 9. But that you live with those nights, and you know, I think our players know that. Like that's you're not going to be able to win making shots all the time. It's nice when the ball goes in, and you know, hopefully everybody's shooting them with confidence that it's okay if the ball doesn't go in. You know, and you know, even if those shots are early clock, I've mentioned before, you know, hopefully they're shots we can offensive rebound on occasion. And if they're good looks, you know, late, they're good looks early for us. And you usually, as I've said, you may not get the same shot. But I think our reads have gotten better, where we're driving the ball against hard closeouts. And when we've driven the ball, it's not always for my basket. It's to hit the next guy and to respace. And, you know, that connectivity is what you want to see on the offensive end.
What changes for your late offense when you have Harris back and healthy, and you have another player out there through whom you can run the offense?
Yeah, I mean, you articulated it, and I'll just agree with you. You know, I think Harris does give us another guy that's capable of gaining an advantage, and that may not always be, you know, for, you know, Trey in particular as well, obviously, who does that for us, but that might not always be for their shot, but it puts the defense in help situations, and that's when, you know, other guys have an opportunity to make a play. You know, I think the O's been consistent in those situations, whether it be on the glass or, you know, O's got really sure hands, and you know, our guys trust him, and that's the biggest thing. I still, you know, when the game slows down, a lot of times, you know, you're making a play, and if it's for yourself, it's pretty evident. But trusting each other in those situations is huge.
Quinn, you've spoken at various times about Trae Young's improved defense. You know, from my perspective, it seemed like when the Warriors were trying to get Jimmy Butler and Trae matched up against each other, he was doing a pretty good job of showing and recovering. You know, you guys were scram switching. He was doing a good job of executing that. Those kind of some of the specifics that you're talking about, and what else do you think that he has done really well this year defensively?
Well, I think, you know, in a lot of those pick and roll situations where they're involving him in actions, you know, he can impact whether he's switching, and you saw a couple times tonight where he, you know, he being competitive in those situations when there's a switch and we aren't coming to double team, or you know, Butler rose to the nail of the foul line, and it's very difficult to double because of the way they're spaced. You know, there's those individual situations where, you know, guarding your man, which I think, you know, when he's locked in on that, it's really helpful to our group. And then, obviously, you know, we don't want Jimmy Butler to play one-on-one against Trae. You know, that's not the matchup that we're looking for. You don't want Jimmy Butler to play one-on-one against a lot of people. But I think our team collectively, not just Trae, but, you know, guys covering for each other, and if we are in rotation situations, you know, we're executing as a group collectively, because, you know, we understand that you know, people are going to go to that, and, you know, Trae, our whole group of guys does, and whatever the coverage is, if we're mixing up a coverage, the key is for us to execute, I think, is the main thing. And you know, we were solid at that tonight. Okay.